Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gregory. I'm the director of the Women's Studies program at the University of Houston, and I'm the author of Ready: Why Women Are Embracing the New Later Motherhood. One thing that is occurring now is that the scholars are starting to catch up with what women have been doing and figuring out, why are they delaying? Are they idiots? Are they just foolish that they're waiting until the point where they are running into fertility issues? Well, it turns out no, they're actually quite canny, and now they can document that for every year that the college-educated, full-time working woman delays her children, she makes 5% more in wages and 12% more in overall earnings. And the difference between wages and earnings is the time that you're on the job. Because, first of all, women without children can be there more. And then once they're more well paid, because child care is a huge expense, good child care for many women, they can, given that they now have a higher salary, they can afford the kind of care that women at lower salaries cannot afford, which is good care that they want to have their children in, that's reliable care, and that allows them to be at work more reliably. So those two factors mean that a woman who has a child at 30 is going to be making twice as much over her long career as she would have if she had had a child at 22. And it will increase with every year further of delay. So what this kind of scholarship demonstrates is that women have been making informed choices all along. They've been figuring that out for themselves. They've been observing it in the women before them, and that's why the trend has increased, because long term, these women are going to be able to provide for their families in a better way in terms of the finances. So you can think of it in sort of anthropological terms as, provisioning one's young. That there's actually a responsibility, and it's not just women being foolish or not understanding. So a lot of women are balancing these issues that are created by this mixture of personal issues and framework issues. But one of the hopeful things is that as more and more women delay, one of the effects is that you do have more women trickling up into positions where they can start to make policy. And this is one of the important ripple effects of delay, but it takes time. There's a time lag before you start seeing women in government and women in positions where they're making business policy, where they can create more of a family-friendly infrastructure. And we now have about 17%, 16, 17% of the legislature of the Congress is female, and that's many fewer, obviously, than the 51% of the citizenry that women make up. But it's a high, and it means that they're able to start getting women's concerns heard for the first time. So this is ongoing, and the more of a community of women with influence and education who can then speak for the group and give access to the group to the context in which these decisions are made, then we can start seeing change, because it does create, you do need a critical mass before people start seeing your issues as actually important and not just something that they can ignore. Well, I would say probably most women are at least aware that there is an issue. They may not be aware of the particular ages at which certain percentages are likely to be pregnant, but they definitely know that there is an issue, and everybody is trying to make it all make sense for them, for themselves, in their own situation. So they have to balance this knowledge of increasing infertility with the need to find the right partner, and to figure out when they're going to be in a financial situation that they can afford a family. And these are huge issues. And you might, for instance, if you're not there with the finances or the partner, you might get a little hopeful and think, well, gosh, I know occasionally people have children at 46. That's not stupidity, that's being hopeful, because the other things are not working out for you at that point. And you're trying to put it all together. You're trying to make it all make sense. And that's hard. And so part of the issue, a major part of the issue, is the fact that we don't have a family support network. And if you want to have a child and have a long and successful career, you have to work to a point where you can afford childcare. If you had a national affordable childcare system, you could have a lot less fertility issues in the United States. That might be the most effective fertility treatment that you would have. It's not the doctors, but the context in which we fail to support families. That's not the only solution, but it's a huge part of it. And then there is this issue of communicating with people about what the specifics of fertility are. You have to do it in a way that is not exaggerated. I think that a lot of information is sort of given to women in this sort of lecturing tone about how they don't understand their fertility, and it's all, after 35, it's all a big problem. Well, both of those things are not the case. Women do understand that their fertility declines for the most part, and they can't make these decisions based on warnings that are not reflected in what they see around them. Most people at 35 can have a child. If you tell them that they can't, they're going to not listen to you. If you're doing that because you think you need to get people's attention and they're not listening to you, so you want to say something radical, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to get people to absorb your information. It can't be you're doing it wrong, it's your mistake. It has to be a way of addressing people that acknowledges that they are trying their best to put it all together, and that there are many factors involved, and that it's not stupidity that is the determining factor here. And you have to address those changes. You have to address the possibility of actual framework change. And so far, there's been very little national discussion of the way our family support system fails women and men who want to have children. It's always been seen as, it's your family, it's your problem. But actually, if you have that issue, if you have that attitude for the long term, you discourage people from having families because they basically can't afford them. And currently, you're in a recession, you have a declining birth rate. And you've seen this globally in countries where they don't support families, like Italy and Japan. Way low birth rates. Now, the countries that have the high birth rates, those are the countries where they do have support systems that allow people to combine satisfying work and family, and they don't feel that when they have a child, they are actually putting themselves and their children at risk, financial risk, which is the circumstance that most people feel they're in now. So you see a lot of big factors, a lot of stories about fertility in the news from all directions. Birth control is now political in this major way. Well, what does that have to do with the fact that there's a falling birth rate? Are you just going to force people to have children by denying them birth control? That's not really an adequate way to deal with the long-term needs of the country in terms of production of citizens and education of citizens and workers and all of that. But you can see that these issues are all related in a big picture way. And you have to have people who are thinking about these things in the big picture and not just putting it on individuals to solve the problem and blaming them.